Greetings, all you Jackson Jennets, and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you, what do we want to call this? Championship weekend, AFC
Here.
Championship set, NFC Championship set. We will get into both of those games, break them down pretty well, talk about what happened last week to get the Bengals, the Eagles, the Niners, and the Chiefs to the game, including some big-time potential injuries going around in both championship games. But first, I want to talk with a little bit of Steelers stuff, a little breakdown of the season. Last week, me and Laskers broke down the Steelers' offense on a per-drive basis. This week, we have Laskers, we have Gingy, and we're going to break down the defense, boys.
Here. That's what I like to hear.
The 1 minute donkey dialogue to enter, followed by the 2 second welcoming of the guest. That's how we do it here on your Daily Dose. Hey, so do we expect the defense to be better or worse or even with the offense, I guess, on per drive stats in terms of league rankings, Laskers?
I'm hoping next year can be a little bit better than what we did this year because I don't think we're even league average this year. It just didn't look that good.
I'll tell you right now, defense, we were just literally about the average line. Points per drive, we gave up 1.93 points per drive. That's good for 16th in the league. Turnovers, we first 23, which is only 14th in the league. So while we're out here, Gingy, hooting and tooting that we led the league in interceptions, guess what? In terms of total turnovers, we weren't really that good, Gingy. A little bit surprising on that stat for you?
Not gonna lie, when you don't have your marquee guy out there in terms of TJ, yeah, without TJ, I 100% would agree that defense is average. Not bad, that defense is average. With TJ, that's when you start going into top 10. I'm not going to lie, though, when you're focusing on the defense, without TJ being there, even with that defense being average overall, did have a breakout year, I think, from Alex Highsmith. Donkey, I saw a stat line there. You know, he's in the teens in sacks, had a couple forced fumbles, made a difference in a couple games. So I honestly like to see the improvement there with him. I think he stepped up this year.
I agree with you, and he put up those sack numbers. That's going to get him paid, and he's a guy the Steelers can't afford to pay. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud, and I'm hoping everybody's listening. A pass rush specialist as a rush edge is not the type of guy you can afford to pay, especially when you consider this. There is no one with a bigger difference in their pressure rate than Alex Highsmith this year. What that means is in games where he got sacks, his pressure rate was astronomically good. In games where he didn't record a sack, his pass rush rate was there were a couple games where he didn't get credited with a single pressure. Gingy, you can't have a pass rush specialist who can't generate it on a consistent basis. I mean, were his numbers good? Yes. But let's be honest here. We're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're the type of team that gets Jason World's 9.5 sacks in a season. Is Alex Highsmith, and I've backed him. You know, I said he's had a great year. I feel he was the snub for the Pro Bowl from the Steelers. Is Alex Highsmith a guy who's just fool's gold and the system is made really good? Or is Alex Highsmith an elite level player?
Boy, I don't think he's an elite level player. I think you get him at the right price. He's a piece. He's a piece of that offense, or a piece of that defense. He grew up in this defense. You know what I mean? He wasn't the guy we brought in. He's a guy we drafted and crafted from the beginning for that spot. Coming to culmination last year with his best season yet, and if we get him in that mid price tag range, yeah, if somebody goes out and pays 18 million for him, you know, which a guy with 14 and a half, that was his ending total, I think. He might be able to command that type of money, but not in Steelers world, not with what they're paying already. Minka, TJ, and the other folks on that D.
Remember how much money Bud Dupree got while coming off an injury, while having less sacks than him? Now, Bud Dupree was a lot more of a consistent player.
How'd that turn out for Bud Dupree
Injuries have absolutely derailed what he has done there, but let's not pretend like Tennessee doesn't have an elite pass rush down there. I mean, they've been top 10 every year since signing him, so
there is thing that he did for the Steelers. Elite when he's on the field. I think we're seeing the exact same thing in Tennessee. Elite when he's on the field, but he's not.
Were you talking tackles for a loss, Gingy?
Yeah, I would be talking about, me in defense. I'm about the splash plays. So I'm talking about TFL.
He did have 14 and a half sacks, and TFL was 12.
So yeah, then he's going to be that mid-range guy. Again, I never agreed with paying that guy that much money. He has to be the mid-range guy, and we might lose Highsmith the same way, granted. Right?
I have a feeling we're going to pay another $20 million on the defense to a guy who doesn't really deserve it, and we're going to ignore the offensive line because that's the Steelers' way of doing business, and it has been, and it's the detriment of the team.
He did have 5 forced fumbles this year.
Well, I certainly hope so. If you sack the quarterback 14 times,
which is 5 times his previous high.
Yeah, he had a monster year this year. Like I said, I'm nervous about paying a guy off 1 year, especially when you consider Laskers. You can look this up and come back to me in a minute. I'll go through the rest of the defensive stats. He's a guy who had a bunch of zeros in a bunch of games, but when he has a game, he has a game. Like, I think almost all of his sack games were multi-sack games, and then he had a bunch of goose egg games. I'd like to see a little more consistency and performance there, because really what it shows to me is that he could just be that guy who takes advantage of bad players at a position and doesn't win against good tackles. Now, let's finish off the defensive stats here. The defense average giving up 5.5 yards a play. That's a little high. Scoring chances, they were 12th in the league, one of their better rankings, only giving up 37% of the scores. But red zone percentage, they were 17th, as 55% of red zone drives led to a touchdown. Third down percentage, they were 18th in the league, allowing a conversion rate of about 40%. Yards per drive, they gave up 32 yards a drive, which was 21st in the league, so not very good there. Gingy, when you look at this defense on a per drive basis, it's a lot worse than when you look at the total. The ball controlling offense made this defense look better. While everyone wants to knock the ball controlling offense because we weren't putting up 30 points a game, but they want to talk about how the defense was so good this year because they were 10th in the league in scoring. But they were only 10th in the league in scoring because of that ball controlling offense. So while we're here saying the defensive coaches should be good and safe because they had such a great year, when you compare the units, offensive and defensive, on a per drive basis, both of them were very league average. Matt Canada's probably getting more hate than he deserves because he ran a ball controlling offense, which, if you know Mike Tomlin, that's how he wants to play. So he is playing into the Mike Tomlin offense or scheme. And then the defensive coordinators and defensive coaches like Flores get all this love when their team was really just average. It's just they weren't out there as often as other teams. So when you look at these things, and I know it's a little different than people like to, it gives a kind of different story, don't you think, Gingy? When you look at it per drive rather than per game.
It can be. Yeah, I definitely understand your perspective when you're looking at it per drive, and that's some insightful information, when you're breaking down the numbers that analytically. Myself, what you inherently saying when you break down numbers average per drive is that all drives are equal. In the game of football, not all drives are equal. There are some drives that are far more important than others, in my opinion. So when you talk about that stat, Donkey, you definitely get a certain perspective of how that team operates in a certain facet, but I don't think it tells the whole story about every game, necessarily.
I hear you, but this is why I do it per drive, because it gives you a better look of how a team actually performs. You think a per game basis look is better than that? You think a per game basis gives you the importance of what drive happens? So if the Steelers score 30 points a game, but their defense gives up 50, do the Steelers have the best offense in football?
No.
No. That's not how it works. I think we cited a particular example of this earlier in terms of we were talking before the show a bit about Matthew Stafford. And I think that same rule might similarly apply here, if you know what I'm saying. And what we were saying, folks, is that it appears, that Stafford carried that team to a Super Bowl, and for all intents and purposes, he made plays, got the job done. Granted,
he threw an interception that should have ended the season.
100% true. Again, there were plays that were made, were not made, simply not by that unit in a vacuum. Right. So when we're talking about the Steelers unit in a vacuum, that, in my opinion, there are the drives. Okay, let's talk about the drives in the Cincinnati 30-37 game versus the drives, let's say, in the New England game, which ended with a score in the teens, right? Mm-hmm. You know, when you start looking at it on a drive-by-drive basis, you'll see the numbers maybe a little bit differently when you look at it in a different way. And I don't know the best way to look at it. When you're looking at analytics and trying to analyze a defense and project for the future, what do you look at? Do you look at the big plays and the big moments, the clutch guys who make plays when they need to, or do you look at the guys that make plays every down?
I'm going to tell you this, Gingy. I have an easy breakdown. I think, and all I'm trying to do here is point out, I think on a per drive basis is a better analysis of how a team performed than a per game basis. I've always felt that because some offense shouldn't get more credit than, like, let's say Baltimore's offense at one point. They were elite in scoring points because they only ran like 9 drives a game, and half of them they would score touchdowns. Whereas Kansas City would run 14 drives a game and score 2 more points a game, but per drive they're scoring less points per drive. That's why I feel a per drive comparison from team to team is a better way to compare teams than a per game comparison team to team. Now, what you talk about is really fun because if you remember, I did it last year when I compared Ben Roethlisberger, and everyone would say, but his stats aren't bad. And what I did is I compared Ben Roethlisberger's stats when the game was within 1 score compared to when the game was 2 scores or more. And the thing was, Ben's stats when the game wasn't within a score were elite because, he's playing prevent defenses. And I would love to do that, compare a unit in that circumstance. How good do they perform when the game's tied? How good do they perform when they have a lead? How likely are they to give up the lead? I would love to do that. Maybe I will do that next year because I did it while tracking Ben. I'm sure I can do a track in the Steelers unit. The harder part for me is going to be I can't get those stats anywhere else, so I would individually have to track every single NFL team, and I don't have the ability to do that. But I could tell you how the Steelers perform in those situations uniquely because that's the team we watch, and that is something I'd love to do. And you know me, I broke it down that way. What I'm saying here is I just feel per drive is so much better than per game because you get an actual look at how a team is performing as opposed to the totals. Because let's be honest, if a defense is out there for 14 drives because their offense is terrible, they're going to give up more points. Does that mean they're a worse team? No. Now, a thing you do want to look at is forfeited fourth quarter leads and things like that. But what I'm trying to do is change the way the sports world views total team stats, Gingy. I don't want teams to be, they're the best offense in the league because they score the most points per game. No, I want to see who scores the most points every time they touch the ball. What team is more likely to put up more points if you give them the same amount of things? And honestly, I changed my predictive patterns for predicting football games by using per drive instead of per game. And you want to know what? The correct percentage over the last 5 years of picking the game went from 64% up to 82% when you factor in per drive analytics instead of per game analytics. So you're talking about a 20% increase in accuracy. Actually, a 25% increase in accuracy when you do it per drive as opposed to per game.
Yeah, that's why you're the Viking donkey, homie.
Mm-hmm. Because I waste way too much time making spreadsheets. I agree with that. But, Gingy, you talked about analytics. I want to get into something I thought was fun. Deontay Johnson, a top 5 receiver per analytics.
Oh,
you put any?
See what I mean about analytics? Here we go. Like, absolutely, case in point, right?
Do you want me to rip this analytics apart, why they're wrong, and then let you go, or do you want to go first?
Well, let's hear what you have to say about it. And I'm not saying that Deontay's not elite. I'm talking about results versus potential. But go ahead.
What I'm going to say is this analytic ran on 3 parts. Average separation on routes per, throw. So it doesn't even matter if you're a target or not. Okay, so separation on any play, which is silly to measure because decoy receivers don't get covered. Neither here nor there. Number 2, yards after catch, which, by the way, Deontay Johnson was one of the worst receivers in yards after catch. And the analytics I saw in terms of expected yards after catch, he was one of the worst there, averaging negative yards expected after catch compared to what was expected. So no way elite there. And then contested catch rate, which again, he was about 64th in the league. So nowhere near elite. When you're talking, this guy's the bottom in two of the categories they're measuring. I have no idea how you can be the bottom in two of the categories and get into the top 5. And the way they measured separation is the dumbest thing in the world. How'd you measure separation on non-targets? If you measure his average separation on throws he was targeted, he comes in at 42nd in the league. Not bad. But the fact of the matter is, just because the dude stands at the line of scrimmage as a decoy, while we throw a screen pass the other way and he's 10 yards away from the cornerback, he shouldn't get credited with 10 yards of separation on a play that never was designed to get him the football. That's the dumbest thing I ever saw. Not to mention, the fact is, Deontay Johnson was one of the lowest receivers in terms of targets downfield and in terms of routes run beyond 15 yards. The fact of the matter is, how'd you even measure separation, Gingy, in a league where almost every cornerback plays off coverage against the Steelers because they know they're going to throw it short. So they play off coverage, come up, and make the tackle. How in the world do you measure separation for a guy that never runs deep passes? Whoever made this stat needs to wad up the paper, throw it in the trash can, pee on it, put a little gasoline on it, find a lighter, take that baby outside, burn it, get them ashes, put it in a crematory, burn it again, take them ashes, put them in the toilet, and flush it, because it is trash.
You know, Donkey, I don't know what to say about all that. Okay, I'm not saying that separation is completely irrelevant, obviously. But really, when I'm measuring elite wide receivers, it's not going to be in my top 3.
I love top 5 receivers that never find the end zone, Gingy. Them my favorite.
You know, that's my first question, Donkey. How many touchdowns does Boy have this season?
I think I told you.
0.
Holy smokes. I've never, ever in my day seen a number 1 go down with 0 tuts. What is this?
So how does a number 1 go down in percentage catch? I mean, he went way down. He's down 5% from last year.
His yards per reception are worse this year than last year.
He got burnt by the situation. All right, everybody thought the QB carousel was really just, only affecting the QBs. Yeah, right. When Mitch Trubisky got 1,000 reps with Deontay and then gets benched a third of the way into the season, that really hurts that development. You know what I mean? And Pickett's not getting reps with the number 1 guy because Deontay's number 1, right? So he gets all the reps with Mitch. And you can tell when Mitch is in there, he threw him the ball. Not well, because he's not well, but he got him the ball, and Pickett doesn't find him. He finds Pickens. He finds Sims. He finds Steve Sims. He finds the guys that he's taking reps with, man.
Gingy, I'm going to argue with you here. He threw the ball to Deontay in a lot of first halves, but then Deontay Johnson would take first downs and on third down, take first downs, run them away, and make them have to punt. God, why the hell would you throw the football to a dude who doesn't know which direction he's supposed to run?
And that brings me back to another point that I've had consistently about Deontay. Donkey, you like tracking analytics. How about unforced errors? And what I mean by that is, what I mean by it, for those who might not have seen the other episodes, what? Yes.
Just so you know, Kenny has double the attempts as Mitch does in the season.
I understand that, but you could see where that development started, right? After the bye.
Yeah.
I know that, yes, there were attempts taken before. Yes, he had a 3-pick game, first game out. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. Yes, he's a rook. Okay, I understand all that. But I'm telling you that those games looked like preseason, right? They looked like preseason games for him. Once he got 4 games as a starter in after that, things started to gel just a hair bit better.
You're not wrong. Before we get to talking about the game, there's one last thing I want to bring up. So PFF, I just found their Steelers grades for the units as a total. Now, albeit, PFF, please, everybody take it with a grain of salt. You obviously have to do the eye test to go along with it because how they measure things, are beyond ridiculous. Like, I've seen Mitch Trubisky have a top 10 game as a quarterback in terms of PFF rating this year. There was not a single game where Mitch Trubisky was a top 10 quarterback of the week, let alone in the total NFL season. So obviously take PFF with a big grain of salt. But they averaged the Steelers offense 74.5. If you don't know, PFF 60 is the average. So above average on offense, but I don't understand how you're above average on offense and come in 16th in the NFL in offense. Little confused by that. I'm not sure what their mean should actually be. But the defense came in with only a 71.2, which puts them at 18th, which kind of, I actually agree with this. And I said it to you guys, and I've said it a lot. With my eye test this year, I thought our offense was better than our defense. I said that. I felt like the offense produced better than the defense produced. I felt the offense was more likely to make plays than the defense was. The first Cincinnati game was standing because the defense balled out that first Cincinnati game. But what I really want to get into here, and I've been on Mr. Bubblegum's ass for 5 years, I have no idea. The special teams comes in at 59.1, which is 31st in the league. Which, by the way, again, how the hell is 60 average? You score average and you're the worst team in the league? I don't know. That's PFF for you. Don't read too much into it. But I have to agree with them. I thought the Steelers had one of the worst, if not the worst, special teams. And I don't think we've talked about it enough. And all the coaches being on the hot seat, Matt Canada, there's even talk for Terrell Austin out there, the defensive coordinator. Why is there no talk for the coordinator of the worst unit, the unit that's been the worst, and the unit that
Special
honestly
teams
might have cost us the playoffs this year with their lackluster play? Because let's not forget, the New England loss is purely on the special teams. The Baltimore loss, arguably, purely on the special teams. That's 2 games. The special teams doesn't ever get talked about, but Mr. Bubblegum Danny Smith Gingy is never, ever on the hot seat.
I don't know what to say to you. I agree with you. Not only is special teams not necessarily producing, which I haven't been really concerned that the Steelers were going to return a kick or do anything crazy since Antonio Brown was back there returning them. But they actually are a active hindrance. Mistakes are being made on that unit. You're right. Gunnar Olszewski phoned in the New England game. Pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that was some Bill Belichick moves going on. You never know, though. That's just my Yinzer attitude, looking at it from the outside in. Yes, I agree. Boswell was not in the realm of, at one
Boswell
point,
needs to go.
At one
a top
point,
5 paid kicker who only makes 50% of his kicks. No, just kidding. 70.
At one time, I'm talking top 3 kicker in the league, and definitely not this year. Not even top half. It might be average kicker. Yeah, nothing on it. Here's the thing that I have seen.
Though,
Killebrew is probably the standout.
The only guy that I'm giving credit to here on that special teams is Miles Boykin. And when you consider the average salary per player on the Steelers special team is higher than any other team in the NFL, the results can't be worse in the league. You're talking punts. We led the league in punts under 30 yards. Woo, good job. Field goals missed. We were top 10 in field goals missed. Coverage unit, average yards allowed. We were in the bottom 10 in that as well. Punt return unit, same thing. When you're spending $5 million on pure special teams guys like Derek Watt, $3 million on a pure special teams guy like Miles Boykin, another $3 million on Miles Killebrew. What in the hell? When you are literally one of the top 3 teams in special teams money spent, how is your unit this bad, and how does the coordinator not get held responsible, Laskers?
I don't know. He definitely needs to be held responsible because he's the one who's driving it. He's like, oh, we need these people. We got to keep them, And Derek Watt, yeah, he's had a few plays on the offense, but no, we don't need him.
What I'm going to say to you here is How bad is the talent evaluation in Pittsburgh? Let's not forget, Denver, one of the top 5 punters in net yards this year, Corliss Waitman. Who did he play for last year, guys?
I'm going to guess the Steelers, but I don't know.
The Steelers, and he was averaging about 50 yards a punt, but we decided to cut him in order to keep Presley Harvin. That's a great move. Good talent evaluation there.
Donkey, you can't really say that because you're a big press
No,
fan.
I love the draft pick. The dude's been terrible. I've been saying he needs to be cut for 2 years.
I know.
I'm not afraid to admit my mistakes. I love the guy. He sucked here. I have done it before with other players. I'm like, man, they're going to fit our system great. Gingy will tell you, Mark Barron, that's right. Is that the guy, Mark Barron? I loved his addition. And then I said, man, I was stupid. I'm not against admitting my mistakes. Apparently the Steelers are, because we had one of the top punters in the league this year on our team last year, and he was punting that good, but we decided to keep the dude who can't punt well. And then let's get to the kicker game. Chris Boswell should have just stayed on IR all year because Matthew Wright was the better kicker. We can argue all you want about it. Hell, Nick Skiba kicked better than that. And that's just some random guy we picked up off the street. At the end of the day, this loyalty to a fault is killing the Steelers. And then overusing players. When Benny Snell Jr. is the leading running back on the Steelers, he shouldn't be playing on special teams on those days. But instead, there's a huge kick return in the game because Snell's a little worn out because, he was getting the ball 20 times, and he hadn't got the ball 20 times for the whole season. He gets it in a game. He misses his lane. It's a huge kick return. The fact of the matter is, I'm coaching. All I have to say is it's coaching because you spend that kind of money, you don't evaluate player talent well. That's all coaching, and that's all I have to say. You guys can have some closing thoughts, and then I'll get into the playoff games.
Yep. Can't have it, Donkey. Got to have some definite areas for improvement. I agree with what you said overall. Only want to make one addition. We need to address somehow, and maybe we can talk about this maybe a little bit more next week. I know we touched a little bit on the defense this week. Still got to figure out this issue at middle linebacker and what we got to do there. That's my closing thoughts because we're going to have to be able to stop the run next year. We're going to have to be able to stop the run moving forward, and that this year was a real problem.
What if I tell you the defensive line's the way to fix it?
It could be. I don't know the answer. I think it's a multitude of things.
Lasker's closing thoughts?
I think defensive line definitely is where you fix the run problem because if you can stop it there, well, then you don't care because they're going to be stopped at the line.
It's why the middle linebackers in Philly always look so good because they play behind a great line. Speaking of that, let's start there. Philadelphia going in, and I'm going to be honest, half of these football games this week weren't even fun to watch because they weren't even football games. Like, did anyone from the snap of the get-go think Philadelphia wasn't going to win that game last week?
No, I didn't even think that game was even remotely close after the first snap. Excuse me.
Like I said about this, and I said it earlier in this year when we played them, my biggest question about Philadelphia was Jalen Hurts, can he stay healthy? Because if he can stay healthy the way they are able to run the ball with him at quarterback, as they showed last week, they're unstoppable. That defensive line is good. They got some ball hawks playing out there. Like, how the hell did they trade for arguably one of the best cornerbacks by giving up nothing? Good job on that trade, New Orleans, out there. Gardner Johnson, if you're curious about who I'm talking about. Way to go, New Orleans. Way to just give away a top guy for absolutely nothing. Make that Philly defense absolutely elite out there. Javon Hargrave, former Steeler, is balling out there. I mean, Gingy, these are the guys that are coming in as subs. And Ndamukong Suh. Let's just start there. Really? How is that even fair?
Yeah, it's true. I think that they're still going to have some tough sledding, though. It's going to be an awesome NFC championship. The Niners are a better defense than I think that they've seen in a while.
That's true. The Niners have a good defense. The best way to attack them, though, has always been running the ball. That's why Carolina gave them such a game. I believe it was Carolina that gave them the big game. And that worries me for anyone who thinks the Niners there. But let's get into that Niners game. It was more of a contest of which quarterback sucks. And the answer was Dak Prescott. The turnovers Dak made purely cost them that game. Brock Purdy was highly erratic, threw the ball all over the place. Dallas started making them have to beat him with the pass. And let's be honest here, Purdy didn't win the game, but Purdy didn't lose the game. On the other side, Dak lost the game. That's all you can say about the Dallas game, I think. Laskers, Gingy, anything?
No, I agree.
How about them boys?
Yeah. Also, I'm hearing a lot of things that the hip tuck tackle might get banned. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the play where it is Bernard Pollard, right? Whatever. Pollard, the running back for Dallas, got his leg broken on a play where it's a hip tackle. I guess they outlawed those in rugby because they were seeing a bunch of injuries. So expect a new rule here. We can call it the Pollard rule because that's what everybody seems to be phrasing it as. We move on to AFC. Oh, man. Cincinnati just took it to Buffalo. The Bengals playing with a chip on their shoulder. Joe Cool. Why does he have to be in our division? Burrow just doesn't lose in the AFC playoffs. I don't know what to say about that game. The Bengals defense is getting healthy. Looks really good. That offense, who did you decide to stop? Tyler Boyd at one point was their number one receiver, is now their slot guy. T. Higgins is a monster. Jamar Chase is a monster. They got good tight ends there. I believe Hurst is the number one. 2 running backs. Burrow's playing great. They were missing both their left tackle and left guard, and Buffalo, who is a top 10 defense and a great pass rushing unit, I know they didn't have Von Miller, couldn't even pressure Joe Burrow with 2 backups in there. My goodness gracious, is this the team of destiny, guys?
That's what they were, it looks like the same thing they did last year. They turned it on at the right time, and I hate to say it.
Me too.
Being the Bengals, but man, they are hot right now. And they've been getting hot, really, since probably Thanksgiving, a little bit before.
Now, any thoughts on that game?
The one thing I'll say is Eli Apple. That he's disgracing that team. The way that he was treating the Bills fans,
Listen, Eli Apple is following in a long tradition of shit talk from the Cincinnati Bengals.
I understand that, but T. Higgins,
Eli Apple is much like Gardner Johnson, and I'm going to say it. Same with Jalen Ramsey. There's those guys who play with edges, give something to their team. You can hate it. You can say they're disrespectful. You can say whatever you want. Those guys give an edge to their team. That's why Jalen Ramsey works so well. When you're in someone's head, it messes them up. It's why great teams always seem to have that guy who just rubs you the wrong way. The Steelers had it with Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. They have it with Eli Apple. They had it when their last decent team with Vontaze Burfict, though he was a little more dirty than an Eli Apple. But I'll say this. I miss Mike Hilton, man. Watching him go out there and make plays for the Bengals, man, I was like, I remember that in black and gold. And it led to a little reminiscent, I'm not going to lie.
True.
And then we had the Chiefs play the Jaguars. And Gingy, I know you love unforced air. And Jamal Agnew with the most unforced air, probably the biggest unforced air in the NFL this year. Jaguars driving to make it a game. Agnew catches the ball at the 9-yard line and fumbles it without being touched.
Well,
skill.
That's tough. That's tough. It was a good game. Jaguars really were coming back.
Well, the Niners are dealing with some injuries over there, and Christian McCaffrey. Possibly the biggest injury was on a hit by Aidlin Key to Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes gets a high ankle sprain. If you saw the game after that, his mobility was limited. And let's not forget, that game was probably won by a backup quarterback leading a 98-yard touchdown drive, and the only drive he was in. My goodness gracious. Is there concern for Kansas City with Mahomes' injury, or are we going to see more 98-yard backup touchdown drives?
Major concern for me with Mahomes' injury. I think it changes the outcome of the whole shebang.
I don't think there's that high of a concern because Mahomes is that good of a player.
I think there's a high concern because the one thing Patrick Mahomes, and I've always said this, his sneaky ability is his ability to run. 2 to 3 times every game, he will catch a defense off guard and have a huge conversion with his legs. I don't see that happening. I don't think it changes the outcome of the game, Genji, but that's because I think the chip on their shoulder Bengals were going to win either way. But let's get down to that. Let's talk about these matchups. Let's start in the AFC. We have the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. What you guys looking for? Who you think's going to win?
Genji, give me the first.
Yeah, give me the Bengals. It pains me to say it, but given the Patrick Mahomes injury and the limited mobility, like you're talking about, I think that Bengals are going to be able to have it, and Burrow is going to have Mahomes' number.
For me, give me the Bengals, and I already picked the Bengals to beat whoever was in this game. So I'm just sticking with what I was doing at the beginning of the playoffs, and I'm still going with it.
I, too, enjoy the Bengals. You're talking a team that has decent back half play, great defensive line with Hubbard and them that can produce a lot of pressure on their own. Good offensive line play, even with injured players like Kafka and whoever the left tackle was, I can't remember, Williams, I think, wasn't playing. And they have that quarterback who reminds me of someone that just every time he's in a big game and he goes on the field, he's just calm, cool, collected, and gets the job done. I don't know what to say about it. There's something about those quarterbacks that you're just like, what does this person do that makes them that? And you can't put your finger on it because none of the traits are overly elite, but there's just something about them that gets the job done. I like the Bengals here. I'm not even sure it's a close game this time, unfortunately. And you're talking a Chiefs staff that I think is a lot better on the coaching end. I expect Andy Reid will keep it close, but I don't know about that one. Then we got the NFC. We have the Philadelphia Eagles getting fully healthy, fully revving, although I guess A.J. Brown might be dealing with something, versus the Niners on their third quarterback. Injuries to Christian McCaffrey. He hasn't really practiced much, but he said he's going to play. You have really two teams that have offensive weapons and two teams that have elite defenses. Who'd you like, Laskers?
I like the Eagles. I've already picked them, so I'm sticking with my two teams for the Super Bowl.
Ginger.
Here. I'm on the Laskers train this time, but not with the team, but with the sentiment. I picked the Niners at the beginning of the playoffs, and I'm sticking with the Niners in this one as well.
As a person who's a fan of Big 12 football because it's entertaining, this is the longest I've seen Brock Purdy play good football ever.
Yep.
I didn't believe it would continue. I don't think it continued last week in Dallas. I mean, only 19 points and should have had 2 interceptions. Should have had 3 interceptions the week before. I think Cinderella, it's time to become a pumpkin. I don't see how Philly loses this game. You're talking the team with definitely the best defensive line in football. The team with arguably one of the best offensive line in football. I know we could argue San Francisco's the same way, but San Francisco, you can run it down their throat. Philly has Jalen Hurts healthy. I think the difference is going to be Jalen Hurts' running ability and Philadelphia's ability to get pressure with only bringing 4, meaning Brock Purdy's going to actually have to read a defense and not have, by the way, 7 seconds. Is that what the hell he had last week to throw, Laskers? Was it 7 seconds a play or something? It
was a lot. I don't know what it was, but it was a lot.
There has been no pressure on Purdy. I feel pressure comes this week. I feel Purdy finally makes a couple mistakes. And you get to see the Eagles play the Bengals, not next week, but the week after, because we have a Pro Bowl thing. And just so we're clear, we got to do something fun for the Pro Bowl, guys. That means we have to do a Donk Nations award show, okay? We are going to pick our MVPs for the season, our offensive players for the season, our defensive players for the season of the NFL and of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So make sure you do your homework. Make sure you come prepared. And that's all I got, guys. Any closing from you?
Okay. I'm getting excited for the awards show. Got some research to do this week, Donkey.
You're welcome.
It's going to suck for me because I'm on the road this week.
Just listen to some podcasts, Laskers. Listen to some smart sports people, and then pick the exact opposite of Skip Bayless.
I'm pretty sure
Can't go
everyone's picking the opposite of Skip Bayless.
And avoid anything Michael A. Smith says, because, well, yeah, I wish I could get paid millions of dollars to do no research and just yell at the TV. But I'm not that good, and I'm not that talented, and I was never that good at a sport. So that puts us here. Any closing thoughts?
Conference championship weekend, baby. Get excited. Here we go. We're down to the nitty gritty now, Donkey.
There we are. Laskers, closing thoughts. I can't speak because I just put 4 words together. Closing thoughts and/or go to your shout out.
I don't have a shout out this week, but we're almost to the Super Bowl, and let's do this. Let's see who wins. It's gonna be a fun game, fun 2 games tomorrow, and we gotta see who wins just to see who gets to that Super Bowl.
Fair. Gingy, shout out.
Shout out. My shout out goes to 2 individuals who share a birthday. Our illustrious host, Donkey, and the mama, Gingy, having a birthday. Shout out to those 2 individuals. Let's go.
Old broken Donkey was in his bed with a neck that wouldn't turn either direction. Getting of age.
Oh.
My shout out this week is going to be to the 49ers, Brock Purdy. You know what? You are probably the most relevant Mr. Irrelevant in football history to do it in your first season. Go out there as a rookie and just don't lose football games. I don't care what happens this weekend. I don't care what my personal thoughts of your future of a career are. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to relish in the accomplishment that you have done, young man, as that is some impressive stuff you're putting on out there in San Francisco. Way to keep the ball clean, way to keep the record clean. And hey, best of luck to you. I don't really care who wins that NFC game or that AFC game, as my rooting interest is currently sitting at home like they have been all playoffs. Boo. But it's time. Gotta let you know, I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of donkey with ginger is the YouTube channel. I hope my audio didn't cut me off too bad there. I know it doesn't like when I get loud. Leave us a comment. Leave us a follow. Let me know what you'd like to see talked about. Any analytics stats you'd like to be evaluated. Does analytics really have a value? We'll get into that this offseason, so stay tuned. Bunch of fun content. I know the season's getting done. I know I still call it Steelers Talk every time, but be sure to listen because there's always something fun going on. Laskers!
You can find me at Laskers everywhere, and that's about it. Over to you, Gingy.
Mutant Gingy in the house. We playing games. We talking football. It's conference championship weekend, folks. Get hype. Get your beverages. Get your snacks ready because we're going to know who's going to the Super Bowl. Let's go, boys.